Hi fellow crafters. I love when I get an email from one of my Pinterest or YouTube followers asking if I would feature a technique that they want to learn. So Lavon, this video is just for you. I'm going to show you how to create the center step technique, which once again is perfect for many different occasions. I'm going to be using my Poinsettia Petals stamp set and matching dies, and my Tidings of Christmas Designer Series paper pack. Be sure to watch all the way through my video for my bonus design tips and ideas, and I'll show you a second card idea using the same technique. So let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm Terri and I'm nuts about stamping. I love sharing techniques and project ideas for rubber stamping, paper crafting, and scrapbooking with you each week. Be sure to hit that red subscribe button and the bell beside it so that you'll be the first to be notified when my next video goes live. Now, are you ready to learn this center step card technique? To start off my project, I want to create some elements for the front of my card. So I'm going to use my Poinsettia Petals stamp set. I love this set because it includes images that help you create custom poinsettias and messages, which is what I'm going to do today. And I really like the variety of Christmas phrases that I can choose for all of my holiday cards. I want to create a large poinsettia element for the front of my card. So to do that, I've chosen a variety of sizes of cherry cobbler cardstock so that I can die cut 4 different, poinsettias for the front of my card. So what I love about this particular pack of dies is not only do you have the outline, but on the larger ones, you have an inset that also creates sort of some texture for each of the poinsettias. I think the hardest part is trying to figure out how to get this inset inside. I'm sure there's a way I could mark it with a Sharpie that would make my life a lot easier, but anyway, I don't mind rotating it around until it fits in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and I'm going to die cut these 4 pieces out that I will then put together to create my poinsettia element for the front of my card. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll be back in a minute and I'll show you the next step in creating this element for the front of my card. Back in a moment. There we go. Here are the cherry cobbler pieces that I'm going to put together to create a poinsettia for the front of my card. Now the next thing I want to do is bring in a piece of evening evergreen cardstock, and I want to die cut some leaves to go along with my poinsettia for the front of my card. So again, for these leaves, you have 2 of the frames, and then what you can do is pop inside the frame this second piece that creates the texture. So what I want to do is create 3 of these. So I'll go ahead and do that, which is going to require 2 passes through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And then I'll come back and I'll show you a final element I want to create for the front of my card. Back in a moment. There we go. I have my 3 leaves ready, and hopefully you can see that sort of textured piece that insert creates. So cool. I just love it. It adds such visual interest. Now the next thing I want to do is take a scrap piece of basic white, and I've got this stamp also from the Poinsettia Petals stamp set. It looks sort of like a branch with berries, and it's actually a 2-step stamp. So the first part I'm going to ink with Evening Evergreen, and I'm going to stamp that down. And then, love that color. Then there is this second stamp that's the insert for the berries. So I'm going to use cherry cobbler and line it up, hopefully. There we go, like so. Isn't that cool? I love it. I just think it's so pretty. Now, when I run this through the Big Shot, because yes, there's a die that goes with that. Let me bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine again. Okay, so I'm going to put this on. I'm also going to create the center for my poinsettia flower out of basic white as well. So I'm gonna just pop this on because it's such a tiny piece. I don't really need to cut a second piece of Whisper White for it. I'll put on the top standard cutting pad or the top cutting pad and run that through. And we will have all the elements ready for the front of the card. So let's put everything together and then I'll show you how to create the center step card base. I'm going to first put my poinsettia flower together, and I could use Stampin' Dimensionals in between, there we go, each of the layers, but I think what I want is I want my card to, or my poinsettia element to lie flat on the front of my card, at least the flower pieces itself. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to, I don't know what you call it, countersink each of the layers so that you get sort of the whole element effect. Let me put this one on next. And then for the center, I've got that little white piece. My glue's not working very well. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to pop this on like so. And what I'm going to do is just slide this out of the way and let it dry. And the next step is to create the center step card base. So let's do that now. I've decided to use Evening Evergreen for my card base. And so I have that cut and ready to go. Now, what you want to do is bring in your paper cutter or some kind of a tool that you have at home that you use to cut. But it was really helpful if it has a measuring ruler on the side, because we're not going to cut long strips. We're going to cut only a section of this. So here's how you create the center step fun fold. You're going to take your cardstock base and you're going to line it up on the 1 inch mark. Okay, so I've got the 1 inch down here on my ruler. So I'm going to take the right side and I'm going to line it up against that 1 inch line all the way vertically. I'm going to move my scoring tool out of the way. And what I want to do is find the 1 inch mark on the ruler itself, and I'm going to line up my cutting blade. There's a little indicator on the side. I'm going to line that up at the 1 inch. I'm going to push down and I'm going to slide this all the way down to 5 1/4. So I started at 1, pushed the blade down, slid it all the way down to the 5 1/4 mark. Okay, so that's on the right side. So you can see, hopefully, that you have a slit cut from 1 inch to 5 1/4 by lining it up on the 1 inch side. Now, the next thing you want to do is, I think the easiest way to do this is to turn it over, because you want to create a second line on the opposite side that completely matches the first slit that you cut. So I think this is the easiest way. You could rotate yours around and then you would have to start at the bottom and go up. For me, I tried it once and it didn't work. So I'm just turning mine over and then lining it up on the 1 inch line. And then again, I'm going to start at the 1 inch, push my blade down and slide it down to 5 1/4. And there we go. I have 2 perfectly cut slits, which will help create this center step fun fold. All right, that's all you need your paper cutter for, but now you need your scoring tool. All right, I have my scoring tool ready and I've got my cardstock lined up in the corner and I've got my slit here and my slit here. And now we're going to create a series of score lines. So what I want to do is, starting from the left side, I want to score 1 inch from the top of the cardstock only down to the slit. Okay, so only to the slit. And then I'm going to start at the slit at the bottom, and I am going to score from the slit down. Again, it's at 1 inch. So 1 inch to the slit, and then start at the slit and go down to the edge of the cardstock. Okay, that's your first scoring line. Now the next thing we're going to do is the same thing, starting at 2 inches from here and then to here. Okay, then we're going to do something different. We're going to look at the 4 1/4 mark. Let me get it out of the way. Here's the 4 1/4 mark. So what I want to do is start here, and I only want to score inside between the slits. Okay, and that's at 4 1/4. And then the last score I'm going to do is at the 5 1/4. Obviously that starts at the top and again goes to the end of my cut, and then here as well at the 5 1/4. Okay, so let's recap. You go from 1 inch down to the cut, 2 inches down to the cut, 5 1/4 down to the cut, and then 4 1/4 is kind of this standalone score. And that's it. That's all you have to do to create the center step card technique. So the next step is to burnish on our score lines. And here's how you do it. Hold your cardstock piece, your card base, so that you've got the 1 inch score and the 2 inch score closest to you. And what you want to do is the first two score lines, the first score lines, you're going to create as mountain folds. And then this naturally will become a valley fold. And then this long one in the middle becomes a mountain fold, as do these two here. And then you just lay it down and look, you have created the center step card base. Now what I recommend is you take your bone folder and you burnish it just a little bit better so that your card base is ready for all of the elements that we created at the beginning of the video. So let me stand it up like so. Let me turn it this way so you can see how it looks with the step. So here is the center step, and your card will stand up perfectly on somebody's mantle. So now it's time to add all of the embellishments and a few extra details to finish this card off. And don't forget, I'm going to show you a second card idea that you can use for a different occasion. One other piece that I want to create for the front of my card is a phrase. So I have a little strip of basic white cardstock, and I've taken the Merry Christmas phrase from the Poinsettia Petals stamp set, and I'm going to ink it up and stamp it down in the evening evergreen. Okay, so I'll do that. Okay, and I'm going to use that on the front of my card. And as you can see, my evening evergreen card base is looking rather plain. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I was going to be using my Tidings of Christmas paper pack, and it's sized just right for card fronts. Each sheet is double-sided, so you have twice the options. One side has more seasonal designs. Let me show you some of those, more seasonal designs. But the other side has sort of all occasion basic designs. So what this means is if you have any leftover pieces of this paper pack after the holidays are over, you can use them on other card occasions or accents for scrapbook pages and so on. So I've chosen a couple of designs from the Tidings of Christmas paper pack. And this is one of them. And so I have cut a piece that I want to use on the front of my card. And then I have a different design that I want to use on the sides of my card. So let's start off with the sides first. So I'm going to open up my card and I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue and I'm going to attach these two pieces of designer series paper onto the sort of the side tabs for this card. So I'll add some glue. Make sure it's the right direction. So I'm going to put that strip here and then the second strip on the other side, like so. Okay, and then I really should leave it to dry a little bit, but let's just fold it up like this. And then I'm going to add this piece to the front. So again, I'm going to add some multi-purpose liquid glue. My glue seems to be really picky today. Hang on, I'll get a different one. Let's see if this one is working better. There we go. Okay. This particular pattern isn't directional, so I'm just going to put it down like so. Okay. And then I have cut 2 squares of the same pattern designer series paper, and I want to put them on either side on the card front of the main piece. Okay, so I'll put one piece there, lining it up with the longer strip, and then this piece will go on this side. Again, lining it up with the piece that's underneath. Okay, things are taking shape. Now the next thing I'm going to do is bring in my Merry Christmas phrase, and I'm going to adhere that to the front at the bottom of this designer series paper layer, because I want to leave room for my poinsettia on top. Okay, so we've got that. Now, I'm going to just pause for a minute and I'm going to leave this to dry. And what I want to do is create a second layer. Now, the unique thing about this center step card is that, well, you have 2 options, I guess. You can open it up and you can create some images and phrases, or you can write a message on the inside. But really what this card was intended to do with this kind of layout or technique layout is you're going to turn it over and you're going to decorate the back side, and that's where your message is going to be. So I have gone ahead and I have cut a piece of basic white that matches the size that I used on the front of my card. And what I want to do is use a second phrase. I've got the warm wishes from our home to yours. It's also in the Poinsettia Petals stamp set. So I'm going to ink that up and I'm going to stamp it down in the bottom right-hand corner. Sort of an unusual spot for a phrase on a card, but it's going to work. Then, if you'll recall, I had created this little branch element using the cherry cobbler and the evening evergreen. And what I want to do is attach that as sort of a nice visual element also to go on the inside of my card. So I'm going to put that there like so. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Now, what I'm going to do is let everything dry for a few minutes, and I will be back and we will finish off this card. All right, I think everything has dried enough so that I can go ahead and finish this off. So I'm going to turn over my card and I'm going to attach this basic white layer. Maybe. I am not having good luck with my glue today. There we go. Normally it just flows beautifully. I think I'm slowly running out as I use it all the time. All right, so I have got this layer like so. So that leaves me the opportunity to write a phrase, you know, say Merry Christmas to whomever that this card is going to go to. Now, the other thing I could do is I could take an additional piece or two of this Tidings of Christmas pattern paper, and I could put strips down here, but actually I'm fine just the way it is. When it sits on somebody's mantle, they're not really going to see the back anyway, so I'll save this designer series paper to use on another project. Now, the next thing I want to do on the front of my card is I want to attach my poinsettia, and I'm going to do that by using some Stampin' Dimensionals, because I want to give my poinsettia a little bit of a lift off the front of my card. Again, just for some visual interest. There we go. And I think I'll have it sit like that. Get it centered on my card front. Now, don't forget, I have these 3 leaves. So what I'm going to do is attach them flat to the front of my card. And now that I've got some lift on my poinsettia flower, I can then tuck one leaf there and a second leaf will go on the opposite side. I can tuck it under nicely. And then I think my third leaf I'll put on that side. So I will tuck that in like so. All right. So here we go. We've got this beautiful center step technique that we use to create a Christmas card. Now, I have lots of other card ideas showing you how to use the Poinsettia Petals stamp set and matching dies. You might want to watch this video next. Now, let's have a look at what it looks like so far, and then we'll talk about embellishments. So here's the front of my card, and then when I turn it over, here's the back of the card with the message that I will be writing on it to send to somebody special. And then when they get it, they can open it up, and it stands up like so on their mantle. Isn't that cool? I think this is such a cool technique. Now, embellishments. I have these red rhinestone jewels, and I think they would be perfect to use on this card. So I'm going to pick up a couple of these jewels, and I'm going to put one on either side of my phrase, like so. And I might stick a couple as well, just to catch the light when it's sitting on the mantelpiece of somebody in my family, the person that's going to get this card. So I think what I'll do is use 3 of the red rhinestone jewels to add a little bit of bling. Now, if you recall, at the beginning of the video, I told you I was going to show you a second card idea for a completely different occasion. So this is a Merry Christmas or a Christmas center step card idea. Now, I've got a second idea that I created to send to a friend. So let me slide this out of the way. To create this center step card, I used some of my Blackberry Beauty Designer Series paper, and I used the Floral Gallery dies for the phrase, and then I used my Meadows dies to create this embellishment for the front of my card. So that's the front of this one, and then I used some of my in-color jewels to add a little bit of bling in the center of these 2 flowers, and then at the top of the J, as if it's the dot for the J. And then here's what the back of mine looks like. And turn it over, and it's a birthday card. So I again used my Meadows dies, kept the back very simple because I want to have room to write a message. And really, what we want is for people to stand up the card on their mantle so that they can see the front. Now, I'm curious, which one do you like best? Do you like this one using the Meadows dies or this one using the Poinsettia Petals? Regardless, If you would like a listing of all the products that I used and the measurements for the layers, head on over to my blog, www.nutsaboutstamping.com. And while you're on my blog, consider signing up for my free newsletter. I send 2 newsletters a week. In each one, you'll see a project you won't find anywhere else. I'm Terri. I am Nuts About Stamping. I hope you'll try this center step card technique someday soon. Bye for now.